The 27th day of May 2025. You're welcome back. The name of this is Eamonn Ryan Gives Advice. Now, I'm going to play you a recent video made by Eamonn Ryan, and it's about forestry. So we'll give it a go here. I hope you can hear it.
Is facing a report at the moment which is recommending that they sell creature rights, felling rights for the next 80 years. We don't think that's the right way to go. Irish forestry has been very successful in the last 50 years. We now have about 11% of the country under forest, half of it managed by culture. But the company needs to change. It's a very narrow legislative mandate which sets it as a commercial lumber company, and that affects everything that they do. Some of the land should never have even been planted. It can provide a whole range of other services, biodiversity, water management, power supplies. So the company needs to switch from being a lumber company purely to being a land management company. Even when it comes to forestry, the current system is not the clever way. It's a form of forestry farming where you take the land, plant it, and then tend it over 40 years before you clear fell everything at the one time. That leaves land which is exposed, which is barren, and where the soil runs away into rivers and streams in a really damaging way. So creature needs to change, and the government needs to use this opportunity not to sell felling rights, but to think, how do we change our whole system of forestry management? Here in the Glendine Forest in the Slieve Blue Mountains, there's an example of how we could do things in a completely different way. By creating spaces within the permanent existing cover, where new trees can naturally grow, by going in and taking much more thinnings, and in that safe space, in the shelter space of the forest, allowing new trees grow while the old ones mature, there's a chance for us to get a much better forestry policy in place. The benefits are many. The biodiversity here is really rich. It's a lovely space for everyone to enjoy. And it's labour intensive. I mean, it's difficult. We have to change our ways, going in, taking out one tree at a time, but that creates employment. And the other thing is that it also creates lumber that's a much higher value. This is doing it in a Swiss-German type of way, which is where we need to go. These trees are like trees that the land that time forgot. They're about 80 to 90 years old. And the benefit from that, what we see in the continent, is you can get a price for these much taller, much bigger trees, which is 10 times what we're getting for our current lumber prices. The government needs to use this time of change not to stitch us in to a short-term clear felling model for the next 80 years, but instead to make the switch we need to make towards 80-year forestry, which is permanent and which just gives us income, steady income, forever and a day.
Now, folks, I'm very sorry for a break in the video there. The internet is not just that good on the farm, and that can happen. But you heard him again, and I'll provide a link here under. Now, Eamonn Ryan is from Clonskea in South Dublin. He is educated to the extent of some type of a degree in commerce. That's all the education he has in any other field. It's just commerce. And he has been leader of the Green Party for a long time, and has been in the Irish Parliament for many, many years, and didn't run in the last election on the 29th of November 2024, probably because he knew he wouldn't get elected. 11 of his 12 TDs, that's Member of Parliament, were kicked out or booted out or got rid of by voters. Now, his political life, he was born in 1963. His political life is that he was the Irish former Green Party politician who served as Minister for the Environment. Minister for the Environment. ENVIRONMENT. Climate Change and Communication. And Minister for Transport from June 2020 to January 2025. And he was, if my memory serves me, and I'm sure of this, he was Minister for Energy, because that climate communications and that was energy. Energy was included in that. Now, so then, right, he was a minister in government I'll read it again, for Environment, Climate and Communications and Minister for Transport from June 2020 to June 2025, and was leader of the Green Party from May 2011 to June 2024. He served as a TD for Dublin Bay South constituency 2016 to 2024, and previously from 2002 to 2011 for the Dublin South constituency. So he's a long record there. He previously served as Minister for Communications, Energy and Natural Resources from 2007 to 2011. That was in a Bertie Ahern-led government, if memory serves. On the 18th of June 2024, he announced he was stepping down as leader of the Green Party. He retired from politics in 2024 general election, but he still has the neck on him to come on and make videos telling us what to do. He was the minister. He was in government for years and years. Now, I want to explain something about him and something about why I say he is the most damaging politician possibly ever to serve. No corruption by Charles Haughey or anyone else was ever as bad, because the damage he has done is irreversible. Ireland joined the European Union with the Single European Act, and part of that Single European Act was the Treaty on the Foundation, the fundamental foundation of the European Union, and under that, you can check it yourself, I might put a link, the citizen was guaranteed a good environment and protection of the environment in accordance with the well-being of the people. Okay, that's the thing. In the Lisbon Treaty, which was at first rejected by the Irish people, but it was reinstated after a second vote, again, it reiterated again that there would be a good environment for the well-being of the people. I personally, acting as a lay litigant, pleaded these 2 points in the Irish High Court in Dublin before Judge Max Barrett, and nobody out of a team of three barristers, one for Borbplanola, one for the air grid, and there was another one, I think it was ESB Networks, were mentioned, notice parties. But there were 3 teams of barristers, and the main teams were for Borbplanola and Airgrid, ESB Networks and the ESB, who are the owners, and ESB Networks is the operator. So I pleaded them. Nobody ever contested this. They never contested it at all. I was taking a case to try to force the government to obey the law. Now, subsequent to the Single European Act being passed, and before that, and going back into the 1990s, there was a move by international community under the Aarhus Convention to involve the public in planning and development and giving them a say in their environment and what took place at a national strategic level. And that was signed into law by the EU in 2007, and Eamonn Ryan was the minister who delayed it as long as he could until it was finally endorsed by the Irish government in 2012. Now, bear in mind, he was Minister for Communications, Energy and Natural Resources from 2007 to 2011. And if my memory goes right, the Aarhus Convention was ratified by the Irish government in 2012. So he refused and wouldn't ratify the Aarhus Convention. And this fella has the gall to preach to us about the environment. And the main law is the Aarhus Convention. And then in 2004, the government enacted and transposed into Irish law the SEA Directive number 204/42 EC. And it brought in the transposing regulation 435 and 436 of 2004, bringing it into Irish law in full. Right? None of this was obeyed. Now, I'll read you what it says if I can find it here. Now, the directive has which is signed by every member state. No directive can be introduced into the EU without the consent of every member state. They try to tell us it's EU law. The government signed up for it if it's EU law. Now, there's a good preamble to it, and I can post it underneath. If anyone wants to find it, you'll get it there anyway. And go into the official version, which usually has the word Lex in front of it. But anyway, here it is, Article 3. An environmental assessment in accordance with Article 4 to 9 shall be carried out for plans and programmes referred to in paragraph 2 to 4, which are likely to have significant environmental effects. Right? So clearly, all of the capers Ryan is on about silviculture, which is for the management of forestry. That's what silviculture is. Fisheries and all of that, and energy, and his wind turbines, and his pylons, all come under this. And in Article 3.2, it takes away any idea of what has to be done. If it has a significant impact on the environment, it has to be done. But then this one says it has to be done anyway. And here it is. Subject to paragraph 3, an environmental assessment shall be carried out for all plans and programmes which are prepared for agriculture, forestry, fisheries, energy, industry, transport, waste management, water management, telecommunications, tourism, town and country planning and land use, and which sets the framework for future consent for projects listed in Annex 1 and 2 of Directive 85/337 of EC. Now, I'll read that again and explain it as I go along. An environmental assessment shall be carried out in accordance with Article 4 to 9, and that states how it's to be done. And then Article 3.2 says, subject to paragraph 2, an environmental assessment shall be carried out for all plans and programmes which are prepared for agriculture, forestry, fisheries, energy, industry, transport, waste management, water management, telecommunications, tourism, town and country planning and land use, and which sets the framework for future development consent of projects listed in Annex 1 and 2 of the EIA directive. Now, just to explain to you, there's the overarching plan or programme at national level or county level or wherever it's been put in, the highest level of where the plan or programme is being done. And then there's the environmental assessment, if for a lot of stuff, windmills is one of them, for at the local level. So if you're applying for planning permission just to build a house and it doesn't have a significant impact on the environment, you just go into the Planning and Development Act. But if you wanted to build 37 houses, you might actually need an EIA. That'll depend on the local authority. So the EIA is the local one, the SEA is the strategic one. So it's there. So there it's there. Now, subarticle 3 exempts small areas. Small areas. You could hardly say that Ireland's forestry programme with culture is a small area. They own thousands and thousands of acres. You can quote it underneath. I've seen Michael Fitzmaurice gave that. So it says here on one internet source that they have 440,000 hectares. So that'd be close to 800,000 acres. There's 2.47 acres. So you're talking there about close to 1 million acres. So that's hardly a small area. Now, Article 4 says the environmental assessment referred to in Article 3 shall be carried out during the preparation of a plan or programme and during its adoption or submission to the legislative procedure. So they can be integrated to existing policies. And what it says in Article 5 is an environmental report is required. There has to be an environmental report. So if we look here at Article 6, it says consultations. The draft plan or programme of the report prepared in accordance with Article 5 shall be made available to certain authorities. That's like An Taisce and those people. The authorities referred to in this, in Article 3, and the public shall be given early and effective opportunity within appropriate timeframes to express their opinion on the draft plan or programme accompanying the environmental report. Now, 6 sub-article 4, Member States shall identify the public for the purposes of paragraph 2, including the public affected or likely to be affected or having an interest in the decision-making subject of this directive. The decision-making subject of this directive, that being forestry and windmills and energy, including relevant non-government organisations such as those promoting environmental protection or other organisations concerned. Now, Article 7 insists on transboundary consultation. So if it were in County Monaghan, County Armagh and the northern authorities are entitled to be consulted. Usually they're all the one anyway. They just write no problem here. But the public in Armagh should be entitled to be heard on this process. And all over the 6 counties, the public should be entitled to. And they can't because there's no SEA done at all. Article 10 says that the Member States must monitor, not only must they do the assessment, they must monitor how it is implemented. Now, Article 3(8), subsection 8 says, the following plans and programmes are not subject to this directive. Plans or programmes the sole purpose of which is to serve national defence or civil emergency. So, if it were applying, let's say, to Poland and this Ukraine war is on, they don't have to obey it because it's an emergency, it's a national thing for the defence. They would for other stuff, but not for the defence. Or budget plans and programmes. So what does that mean? Because that's what's used as a get-out when they're challenged in the courts. I claim that means, and it should be better written in the directive, that the national budgets can't be attacked. In other words, if the government comes along this November and issues a budget, putting up a little bit of the children's allowance, increasing the duty on a pint of Guinness, pint of beer, and a little on cigarettes, and something about car tax, and other stuff, and putting money aside, they can do that. They can allocate money for housing, they can allocate money for forestry, they can allocate money and say that money now is going to be left aside. My reading on that is that once they go to implement it, once they go to do the planner programme, they must come along and do the SEA. Now, Friends of the Irish Environment took a case, but they didn't plead it the way I would have done. Unfortunately, nearly nobody has pleaded it right. Friends of the Irish Environment pleaded that all of the government's renewable energy plans should have been subject to this. And they pleaded and got out of it by saying that it was budgetary, even though it's all been rolled out and built, that they only provided a budget for it. So I would have thought that the way to attack it in the courts would be when they go to apply for planner permission, to attack it on the grounds that they have no SEA, overarching planner programme. And this is one area where the EU is kind of siding with Ryan. But I just want to explain that to you. You couldn't have a situation where the national budget in November, setting out government expenditure for the following year, is stopped because of the SEA directive. On the other hand, the budget can be done and can be implemented. They can put the money aside, but as soon as they go to implement it or bring out any plan or programme like the National Renewable Energy Action Plan, they would have to do the SEA. And unfortunately, it was never properly pleaded, but certainly Eamonn Ryan stonewalled it every which way he could. Now, the other thing is that when the SEA directive was brought out, the wind energy guidelines were already, they claimed they were brought out a couple of months before it, because there's a marginal relief in the wind energy guidelines which says that if they had already started them, within 2 years they can complete them in ignorance of the directive and not go along with the directive. But I claim that then once the directive was brought in, any guidelines have to be comply with it, and they have to do the proper assessment. And they once did it. So they did it, and they promised to do a renewal of the wind energy guidelines, and they failed to do it. So really, there may be a nod and a wink with the EU, but this is what Eamonn Ryan, who purports to be for the environment and to comply with environmental law, has done. He has stonewalled the SCA directive. There is no environmental report for any of these industries or any of these ventures. So what he is in effect saying is that the only person who should have a say on our environment is Eamonn Ryan. Now he's complaining about how the government are doing forestry. He was there. He was there for a long time. He was 8 years as a minister in this particular portfolio developing the law. And what have they been doing? Trying to take out the right of people to participate in the law. Now, the proper procedure for an SCA is they call it, it's published in the paper, everyone can make submissions. This means that the man down on the field, if it's about river basin management, an old person there might say, I saw that flooding twice in my lifetime. You're wrong there because that field flooded and I will make an affidavit or whatever's needed. So that's the idea, to involve the public. I could be sitting here and some plan or programme could be instituted which takes the level of the local river as the highest summer or the lowest summer level, not taking into account that every year it floods. In wintertime usually you get a lot of rain and the water is up to 10 times its normal amount, if not 40 times its normal amount. It does a lot of damage every year it comes. All the bridges are built with a design bed which allows it to get underneath. And last year it was within that height of the bridges here. Okay, so that's the thing. If there was something being done now to build something or some plan or program, I could say, well, this is what I have seen, and that has to be taken into account, and that. So then the other thing about it is when they produce their environmental report, it should be available. Because to the public, and they have the right to take a judicial review. The public have a right to be informed when all options are open and their submissions taken into account and reasons given for any decision which doesn't take account of it. So then it says here, where the implementation of a plan or programme is prepared for in one member state is likely to have a significant effect on the other member states, the public there shall be entitled to express their opinion. That would be the South versus in the North. South and the North, Northern Ireland. Now, I'll just go back to Article 6 just so that you'll have it fairly clear. I know we're on 22 minutes. Now, the authorities, this would be like on task, county councils, various things. The authorities referred to in paragraph 3 and the public referred to in paragraph 4 shall be given an early and effective opportunity within appropriate timeframes to express their opinion on the draft plan or programme and the accompanying environmental report before the adoption of the plan and programme and its submission to the legislative procedure. Member states shall designate the authorities to be consulted, which, by reason of their specific environmental responsibilities, are likely to be concerned in the environmental effects and implementing the plans and programmes. Well, that would be Kilche itself. These are public bodies now we're talking about here. Member states shall identify the public for the purposes of paragraph 2, including the public affected or likely to be affected, or having an interest in the decision-making subject to the directive, including relevant non-governmental organisations, such as those promoting environmental protection or organisations concerned. So there it is. We have no say at all. Now, I think that's enough of that. That's totally bypassed. There was an environmental report for offshore wind. It expired at the end of 2020 and they never renewed it because the Aarhus Convention is very clear. You have to show the do-nothing scenario. What if you don't do anything? What are the environmental effects of it? Now, to put this in proper context, under the present law, there is, well, I'll put it a little differently. Up until 2014, if the council was short of staff and they were stuck and they had an employee who was putting on parking tickets, nothing wrong with that, I'm not saying right or wrong, they could take him or her in, we'll say it's her, and put her as head planning officer. There's nothing stopping them. A company could apply for a nuclear power station in the area because nuclear power wasn't banned until later. So we'll say it's Tullamore. The Parker ticket lady is now head planner, and they apply for a nuclear power station. She has nothing stopping her from granting permission for that nuclear power station by Offaly County Council. And she can read all the stuff put in. She never heard of these words before, and she can put them in. In the 2014 EIA directive, certainly expertise is mentioned basically twice. So there'd have to be a degree of expertise in the second one. And that is divided now because I'm fighting them on that and helping communities to fight them, because I say the expertise has to mean that the name of the expert is put down. John Henry McGurty, and his qualification and his experience. And they don't. They put in a company, but they don't give the people who are in charge, who are doing the report. So we think we may have them on that under delay and the wind energy and other stuff. Okay. Now also, there is nothing in the EIA directive about solar farms. Solar farms are exempt, even an environmental impact assessment, unless the local authority demands it has a significant impact on the environment. And yet we could see the country covered in them, and still Ryan never put them on the Environmental Impact Assessment Directive annexes. Wind farms are on it. They have to be done. So if some company puts in Big Tree Environmental Limited Engineering Consultants, they could say this nuclear power station is gung-ho. They could copy and paste the whole thing, send it in to Maggie May. She could rubber stamp it and grant permission. Because there is no overarching environmental report with the technical expertise needed to cover the fact that nuclear energy has a whole lot of other issues, such as where do you get your nuclear fuel, where do you store it, what do you do with the nuclear waste, what do you do with the hot water that comes out to keep it cool, do you dump it into the rivers, or what do you do, how will it affect it if you build it up in Dowra in County Cavan, will that affect down along the way, will it affect the people of Limerick? All of that is meant to be dealt with in the environmental report. As I remember, Offaly touches the Shannon. So this nuclear power station could be designed for, we'll say, Shannon Bridge or Lanesborough. Is it? Well, it's County Longford, but you know the general idea. If she was on Cavan County Council, Dowra is 40 miles from Cavan. The nuclear power station could be built in Dowra, or if it's Leitrim, the other side of the bridge, she could be in Carrick-on-Shannon. She can grant the whole lot. Because there is no environmental report for that particular industry. It's required for energy. There's no overarching plan or programme. There is no overarching plan or programme for forestry. And Eamonn Ryan then comes along after being 8 years in power at the helm, and he starts to whinge about his idea for forestry. And he has some neck on him to come out and start to preach. He has given us the highest electricity prices in the world, bar maybe one or two. He said repeatedly wind energy would bring down the cost of electricity. That was not true. He's never apologised for that. His government connived in putting in prepay meters to hit the poorest, so they wouldn't have to cut off the mother trying to cook the dinner for the kids coming from school. The meter ran out, and if she hadn't the money, they could starve. I could go on about this fella for years and years, and I think because this video is getting a bit long, I'll have to leave it like that. Certainly, I've seen forestry being cut down and the red squirrels running all over the road wondering where their home was gone. I don't think it's well managed. Moreover, the most profitable form of timber in Ireland is Sika spruce. Everyone will tell you that, even though people who don't like the idea of it will say Sika spruce is the way to go. So I don't want to give expertise on forestry. I have a little bit of my own private forestry here on the farm. And I did campaign that that sort of stuff should be kept in the single farm payment, because my cattle go in there in the summer and they scratch around there and sometimes they give birth in there. So I got that changed. But why shouldn't I have been entitled to make my submission on that issue when there was an SEA, a Strategic Environmental Assessment, being done? Am I not entitled to do it? But no, according to Eamonn Ryan, he's the only one entitled to have any say. The ordinary farmer with cows can go to hell. There is no SEA for the onshore wind. There was one for offshore wind and it expired in 2020. There is no SCA for river basin management. It's all make it up as you go along. There's no SCA for forestry or silviculture for forestry at all. There's no SCA for energy. And he's the man that told us wind energy would replace fossil fuel. And I have accused the government while he was in office of burning 56 lorry loads of diesel oil. And I'll bet it's rebated oil, it's not road diesel, which they're not supposed to do. It's only agriculture that can be used. They're using 56 lorry loads of diesel oil to keep the lights on, as they finally discover that this wind energy doesn't work at all. Have I said enough? I might come back on him again and see can I do a bit more, but then my video will be a bit long. He has some neck on him. Here's an article on Olus, and you see the big head of him. Talk about. He doesn't even look to have any brains as far as I can see. Eamonn Ryan TD says it is critical to ensure, well, this is before he left office, an integrated approach to the challenge of climate, biodiversity and pollution. Well, the situation now is the climate, the oil, coal and gas is being exploited like there was no tomorrow. And he tried to and did block the production of oil off the coast of Kerry to stop Ireland having its own resources, leaving us totally dependent on gas from the United Kingdom coming through from Norway, giving us no energy independence at all. He has ruined the environment. Derrybrine wind farm killed 50,000 trout. Now, having poured 100 lorry loads into the base of each turbine, it's proposed by the ESB to leave the bases forever in the ground. Where was the environmental report on that, Mr. Ryan? Oh, we have to have wind. We need more wind. Now it's been pulled down and they're leaving all there behind them. All the grouse species that existed there destroyed. And this is what he is pushing, and he wants to go out now and attack the coastal areas as well. And he hasn't the brains, or none of his government, or none of the remaining government have the brains to ask the simple question. The plan of 2010 said we need 15,000 megawatts, and that'll be surpassed if they get their way. 15,000 when we only need 7. He allowed the data centres to go ahead. If the proper environmental report was done, they'd have to be assessed and included and considered. No engineer has got anywhere near anything to do with energy. No engineer. No proper environmental qualified person has got near forestry, river basin management or anything else. And when there's a big flood next winter, oh, what's the government doing? If I want to build a shed for calves, I at least have to draw it out on the back of a piece of paper and give a basic plan to a builder. If planning's needed, you have to submit the plan and get it approved. But whether it's needed or not, the builder will need a map and a plan, an elevation and an end view. There is nothing. Our Irish environment has no SEA at all. And the EU promised this when we joined and voted for the EU. The EU is not pushing it the way they should. And the European Court of Justice has only given relief on it a certain amount. But they gave relief on case 2419, where they ruled that the wind energy guidelines in Belgium were illegal. So they did rule on that. It's a question of managing to get a case, and I have dedicated a big part of my spare time to persuading people to take cases and in a way that they'll win. I spent hours and hours of my time studying this. And this fella has spent hours and hours trying to stop me. I met him in the Chester Beatty Library in 2014, and I blocked him going out the door. I wouldn't let him get out the door. And I tackled him on this, and he sung dumb. He couldn't answer. He couldn't give anything, only bland, flowery language. Biodiversity. Biodiversity. And the destruction he has wrought on the Irish environment can never be repaired. I might do another video on him, but that's what he's on about. He's lecturing to us now about how we should conduct forestry, while he himself actively conspired to make sure there was never a proper environmental, engineering, or any other type of strategic assessment carried out on any of these industries, because he knew that had cut his flowery language out. He's a bicycle tour operator, he was before he became a TD. He knows he'd have to sit down and get people to do it. The government he has been part of has produced mayhem. They can't get a Garda commissioner. I know it's a different subject. Mayhem. No, and mayhem with migration, which he fully supports. That's the bottom line. That's what you people in Dublin that voted for that in Dublin Bay South, you should be guilty. If any of you there voted for Ryan in Dublin Bay South, you should come on here and say, I did vote for him, I meant the best, but I apologise to the Irish people, because you are as guilty as he is for supporting that idiot and his Green Party idiots. And RTE, Catherine Martin was running it. Oh, look, they're still paying them huge money. A complete mess. Folks, one thing, the people give him his answer when he tried to take the woman out of the home, in the family home, and he tried to assess or restate what marriage meant. He got his answer there. 73% told him, hump off with yourself on your own stupid woke stuff. Anyway, folks, that's my video there for today. I hope you have time to read it. It is absolutely sickening to see these people preaching to us. You notice in my videos, I'm tackling Sinn Féin, but it's not all Sinn Féin. They're not in power. This fellow was in power. He should go away and stay away and hang his head and draw his bit of a pension and shut the hell up. Comment underneath. Bye-bye. And by the way, any Green Party supporter, I am available for debate. No problem. I am available for debate. You took away the rights guaranteed to us in the basic treaties of the EU, which were given under our constitution. You took them away by simply ignoring them and facing down anyone that dared to challenge it in the courts. Bye-bye. See you.